Hello and welcome to Next Witness a Week. I'm your host, Jonathan. I hope you're having a great day. It's a beautiful day today. I'm sitting in the backyard, as you can see, and I'm going to be talking about the talk by Gage Fleegle from the September broadcast of JW Broadcasting. Now, they talk about lowly ones, about those who are in need, and how they care for orphans and widows and that sort of thing. But let's talk about how they're dropping the ball. So we'll run the introduction and we'll go from there.
Don't sue me, bro.
In this month's program, we'll learn how Jehovah is there for us when life feels unfair.
Now that you mention it, when Jehovah's organization is around, things do seem unfair. Now, I've been meaning to record about this talk for about a week now. This time has kind of prevented me from doing so. But also, I have a lot to say when it comes to the things that they're talking about. So I'm going to run some clips and then we'll discuss what my thoughts are on that. As always, you can skip ahead if you want to, so head over to 242 to get through this part.
Care for the disadvantaged. We'll delve into his feelings for such ones, his respect for them, and his long history of caring for them. We'll also consider how Jehovah's care of the lowly ones draws us closer to him and how it can reassure you if you face disadvantages in your life. To begin with, who are the disadvantaged? When we speak of disadvantaged ones in this discussion, we're not talking about the inadequacies of the person, but rather of the unfortunate circumstances in life that one must contend with. Often a person inherits the situation through no fault of his own. Among such ones, the Bible specifically mentions widows, orphans, and foreign residents. Notice this at Deuteronomy 24:17. You must not pervert the judgment of the foreign resident or of the fatherless child, and you must not seize the garment of a widow as security for a loan. And the Watchtower said, the law specifically protected those who could not protect themselves, such as orphans, widows, and foreign residents. Psalm 10:14 refers to such ones as unfortunate victims. And the Bible also uses the term lowly ones, not because they're less important, but because of their circumstances.
Okay, first things first, please stop referring to the Watchtower as it's some sort of a holy book. It's a publication that you guys refer to that is from your own writers. So it's not some sort of external wisdom from God. It is the writing of the writing department. Now, he talks about how the law was designed to help those who are in need, the lowly ones, the orphans, widows, and foreigners. The law was in place to protect people. Now, there are laws that are in place to protect people today. If you don't follow the law, meaning if you don't go to the authorities, if there's some sort of an abuse situation, how is that going to protect those victims? It's not. It has to be used. If you just ignore the law, what good are you doing for these people? I'll meet you at 452 if that's what you want to do.
How does Jehovah feel about such ones? We really see a beautiful aspect of Jehovah's personality here, his compassion and empathy in action. Since a widow doesn't have a husband to care for her, an orphan doesn't have parents to provide for and protect him, and a foreigner has no advocate, Jehovah steps in and fills those roles personally. Notice this in the wording of Psalm 68 in verse 5. A father of the fatherless and a protector of widows is God in his holy dwelling. Jehovah himself assumes the responsibility left vacated. He becomes the father. He becomes the protector. As their protector, note how he views their care at Exodus 22:22 through 24. You must not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict him at all, so that he cries out to me, I will unfailingly hear his outcry, and my anger will blaze, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will become widows, and your children will be fatherless.
That's funny. I don't recall Jehovah ever being in attendance in the meetings. You're supposed to personally care for these ones. Yeah, I haven't seen the evidence of that. Maybe somebody's had a different experience. Go ahead and talk about it in the comments if you like. But as far as God being the one taking personal care of these people, I haven't seen it. Now, he's talking about how the ones that are afflicting, pain and damage upon these ones who are taking advantage of them, how they will be treated, that he will hear their cry, and it's going to be bad news for them. So if you are an elder who is taking advantage of someone in the congregation, or at the highest level, you're a governing body member who is allowing these things to happen, you are responsible for it. And if you are serious about what the Bible says and you believe it wholeheartedly, what's going to come to you when Jehovah comes calling? You're going to be in trouble. You're going to be the one that Jehovah deals with. So you might think about that when you're allowing these things to happen. The governing body needs to do better. If there are laws in place that say that there's mandatory reporting, then that's what people are supposed to do. But even if you're in an area that doesn't have mandatory reporting of these crimes, it needs to be dealt with anyway. It should be common sense. It should be human decency to talk to the police and have something happen. Have the people who are doing these things arrested. Protect children. Protect victims. If you're an elder, just because the legal department says, let's just keep this under wraps, you as a human being should think, would I want someone to bury this if it was my child? No, I would, of course, want something to happen. I would want the cops to be called. I'd want that person to be arrested, and for my child not to have to ever go through that again, or someone else's child to have to go through that again.
Regarding this verse, the Watchtower said, notice that Jehovah did not leave it up to the human judges in Israel to enforce this law. God himself would execute judgment upon anyone who took advantage of a defenseless child. This is how personally Jehovah takes the care of the lowly, disadvantaged ones. They become his responsibility. They come under his protection. Jehovah personally makes up for any disadvantage they may have.
So here's the part where I think that the governing body is dropping the ball. He says that, notice that Jehovah didn't put this off on the brothers to take care of, the older men, that he personally would take responsibility and that vengeance would be his. Basically, he's the one that would execute this judgment on them. To me, that feels like the leave it in Jehovah's hands kind of situation. They're saying that Jehovah is going to protect you and that Jehovah is going to punish those who are causing harm to others. But what about the here and now? What about the little child? About, not even just children, anybody who can be victimized or taken advantage of. What happens to them in the present? Are they just supposed to endure it? Are they just supposed to keep on keeping on? And if, some guy does something to them, well, Jehovah will take care of it later. That's not something that anyone should have to face, should have to suffer through. That kind of stuff needs to stop. There needs to be responsibility taken right now. And the only ones that can do that are people who can pick up a phone and call the authorities. Jehovah is not going to get on the horn and call the local police department because someone is being abused.
Hello? Is this the police? We've got some trouble here. If you could send out a squad car, I have taken personal responsibility for the welfare of these children. And, you need to do something. That ain't happening.
At the beginning, he was saying how Jehovah takes the role as the father to the fatherless boy. In my case, you know, I had a father up until I was 30 when he passed away, but he was inactive and didn't go to the meetings since I was 7 years old. So in the eyes of the congregation, I would have been a spiritually fatherless boy, and I don't recall any sort of a special feeling that Jehovah was taking care of me. I don't recall any sort of a special feeling that anybody in the congregation was necessarily taking care of me. It's all words. If there's no action behind it, it doesn't mean anything.
I'll meet you at 12:11 if that's what you want to do.
About the care of disadvantaged ones. Well, let's consider this a little further. Because of Jehovah's love and compassion for the disadvantaged, he enacted laws to protect them in Israel. In these laws, we see the depth of Jehovah's understanding and his tender care and protection of such ones. Consider just 2 examples. First, let's look at his law regarding a security for a loan. We find this in Exodus 22, 26, and 27. If you seize the garment of your fellow man as security for a loan, you are to return it to him by sunset, for it is his only covering, his clothing to cover his body. In what will he lie down to sleep? When he cries out to me, I will certainly hear, for I am compassionate. There's compassion in this law for any poor Israelite who might find himself in this situation. However, note the additional stipulation made in the case of widows, as stated in Deuteronomy 24:17. You must not pervert the judgment of the foreign resident or of the fatherless child, and you must not seize the garment of a widow as security for a loan. In the widow's case, no Israelite was to take her garment as security at all. Jehovah evidently wanted to eliminate any chance that she be left overnight without her garment to keep her warm. Isn't that beautiful?
So I'm listening to this part about widows and how you're not supposed to take their garment so that they can keep warm at night as a security for a loan. Now, that's a good thought. It just reminds me of how willing that JW.org is to take the money, to take the property of older people who maybe have a home, a piece of land, a building, and they don't know what to do with it. So they leave it to the organization. The governing body is happy to take your money, whatever it is, as little or as much as you're willing to give. I know it's not the same thing as the securing for a loan thing, but it's the readiness of this group of men to take your cash that you saved up your whole life and to put it towards their own personal projects. It's the readiness for them to take your cash, your stuff, and add it to their collection of properties and money, when that could go to helping people as well. What if people decided they wanted to leave that to the homeless? Is that something that the organization would be willing to do? Not at all. What if you wanted to leave that money to organizations that help abused women or orphanages or anything like that? Is that something that the organization would do? Absolutely not. They're just happy to make more kingdom halls and translation centers and headquarters and things like that, and live off of the dime of the brothers and sisters. That's what they're happy to do.
This one's a few clips together, so 1826.
Here's a second example of a law made to help the lowly ones. In this case, it was related to the sacrifices the Israelites were to make to Jehovah for the forgiveness of their sins. We know the importance of blood in regard to sacrifices to atone ones from sin. Leviticus 17:11 tells us that it is the blood that makes atonement. However, note the provision made for the very poor in Israel found at Leviticus 5:11. Now, if he cannot afford 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, he must bring as his offering for his sin 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a sin offering. Regarding this, the Watchtower said, "For the very poor, Jehovah chose to make an exception and allow a sin offering without blood. In Israel, poverty denied no one the blessing of atonement or the privilege of making peace with God." The Watchtower continued, "Does that mean that the flour offerings of the poor were worthless? No. Jehovah surely valued the humble, willing spirit behind such offerings. Furthermore, the sins of the entire nation, including the poor, were covered by the blood of the animals offered to God on the annual Day of Atonement. In this, we see Jehovah's reasonableness, his compassion, and his love for the disadvantaged. No one was left out, and they received the same refreshment from their sacrifice as any other Israelite. Jehovah's love and care for the disadvantaged is in such stark contrast to the way such ones are often treated in the world. Sadly, the world often steps on the disadvantaged, taking more advantage of them because they can. Further, whom does the world praise and promote? Isn't it typically the beautiful, the rich, the talented, the funny, the charismatic? Whereas the common person, even more so the disadvantaged, often doesn't receive such favor. By contrast, Jehovah is on the lookout for the lowly ones. The fact that Jehovah takes personal responsibility for such ones is further seen in Proverbs 19:17. The one showing favor to the lowly is lending to Jehovah, and he will repay him for what he does. Let's walk through the process that this verse describes. First, we assist the lowly, or we show favor to them in some way. We help them in a practical way. We encourage them. We make sure they get justice or care for something else they're in need of. Well, as discussed, Jehovah has assumed the responsibility to care for these disadvantaged ones. So when we step in and assist, Jehovah views this as if we are giving to him, assisting him with his responsibility. But Jehovah doesn't view it as a gift or payment, but as a loan. Well, what's the difference between a gift and a loan? A loan must be repaid. Imagine, when we assist the disadvantaged, Jehovah actually views himself as indebted to us lowly humans. Jehovah will repay that debt with favor and blessings. There's something else that Jehovah does to help the disadvantaged. He gives you hope. You will not be downtrodden forever. Jehovah's care for the disadvantaged will be fully expressed in the new world when all disadvantages will be removed. Psalm 145, verse 16 says, "You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing." Not just the prominent, not just the favored, but Jehovah will satisfy the desire of every living thing. That includes you. The Watchtower said, "The fulfillment of Jehovah's promises will be so impressive that the difficulties and trials of the present time will pale into insignificance. In the coming paradise, the blessings from Jehovah will surpass our imagination, and we will certainly experience unprecedented happiness. Nothing will be missing in paradise. Nothing will be unfair. Every person will have every advantage."
It makes me mad when I see organizations like Jehovah's Witnesses talk about how you need to give even if you're on the poor side. I remember Tony Morris talking about that. I don't have the clip, but he was talking about how even if you're poor, you need to give something. And there's another instance where someone at a Bethel facility was talking about how they have to contribute as well. Mind you, they are making something like $70, $80 a month they're supposed to live off of to get the things that they need, like, soap and shampoo and whatnot. But they have to take their money out of that and give it back to the Bethel. It feels like the prosperity gospel televangelists who are saying that you need to give. If you give your hard-earned money to the church, then you'll be blessed and you'll find you reap blessings later, and you'll find yourself in heaven or paradise or whatever, and the money that you put out will come back to you tenfold. And it's all a bunch of bull. It's not going to come back to you at all. What it's going to do is cause you to have to struggle, while organizations that have, like Jehovah's Witnesses, have billions of dollars in assets. I think I saw one recent figure estimated 10 billion in assets. They don't need it. But you, as a single person or a small family or a large family, whatever amount of people are in your home, you need that in this day and age to be able to buy food and to pay the lights and keep the phone on and, keep a roof over your head. But, these organizations, they really need it. God needs your money. The master of the universe needs your cash.
Okay, this is the last one, I swear. 2434, if you want to skip this part, where it's given the experience of someone who lost someone in death.
As he deals with the pain of losing his wife.
Miriam and I had been able to experience many blessings from Jehovah. Able to go on different assignments with Paraguay, Nigeria, Zambia, and then we packed up all of our belongings from home, took up everything in our life, and drove across the United States from California to Patterson, and within a couple of months, she was diagnosed with ALS. We were crushed. Drove back to California, and there we just tried to do everything we can to help her. Nothing worked, and she passed away. And so it was extremely difficult. She was my best friend. I received an encouraging card from my sister, just helping me to try and keep moving forward. And one of the thoughts in there was this particular scripture in Psalm 18, verse 29. By God's power, I can scale a wall. And sometimes our trials feel just like that. They feel something that you just can't get over, and it's impossible to climb a wall when there's nothing to grab onto. The trial, it may feel this way to us, but again, the scripture says that by God's power, I can scale this wall. So sticking with the goal of pioneering helped me to get moving, and then helped me to also want to try and reach out for other goals, which is going back to do temp work at Bethel. It's a privilege to be able to go to Bethel, and every day you're working for Jehovah. It was nice to be able to be with the friends. They're always so very, very encouraging, and I know that working with them and working on a theocratic project helped to motivate me to keep moving, to feel more positive. I served as an elder in the congregation, so still trying to do my assignments and to try and be on shepherding visits, and been something to keep my mind not on myself, but on trying to help others. It's always encouraging to be out in the ministry and to be with the friends, and they have different levels of anxieties and problems, health issues, and other things that they deal with. When you talk to them and they encourage you, it's an interchange of encouragements to be out in the ministry with the friends. Miriam and I always had a regular habit of personal study. We did it together. We loved to bounce ideas off of each other, and we would share points that we had dug up. Now, even more so for myself, I feel it's important because it helps me to keep motivated, to help me to keep finding those points, and also it's a good memories of something that we did together that we enjoyed. So I stick to my spiritual routine, but I also have a physical routine. I'll mountain bike 3 or 4 times a week, and to be in Jehovah's creation, to be on the trails. It helps me to be able to have time to pray, to meditate, and I can talk to Jehovah and be able to express myself. Jehovah, what he has in store for each and every one of us is not what we're dealing with now, but it's going to be paradise conditions, not have the issues that we're dealing with today. Jehovah's helping me scale the wall and helping me move forward.
Court stays busy. He gives to others, and Jehovah continues to give right back to him. You can be assured he'll do the same for you.
Now, I've tacked on this last portion that isn't part of the talk by Gage Fleegle, but to me, it fits the theme. I mean, they obviously put it in that episode for a reason. So you have this person who was a pioneer and went to Bethel with his wife, and she got sick. She got ALS, and she passed away, unfortunately. Now, they are more than happy to take advantage of these stories of people who have gone through tragedies and to exploit them for the purpose of trying to get people to feel a certain way, to try and get people to give to the organization, to join the organization. And it feels gross. Why do they need to do these sob stories? I mean, I feel for this guy, and I feel for people who are in similar circumstances, but using it as a propaganda piece just feels dirty. It feels like, again, taking advantage of those lowly ones who are lowly in the sense that they're going through something or have gone through something, and they're using it as a propaganda piece, and that's just not right. And I'm thinking about how they're supposed to take care of people. If you get sick when you're at Bethel, they don't take care of you. They send you on your way. Notice that they got there and then they had to turn around and go back to where they came from. So they uprooted their life, and you give everything to the organization, and when you need the help, you don't get it. So to anybody else that's going through a tragedy, a health problem, or something like that, I hope that you get the help that you need, and I hope that you get the support that you truly need, not just this superficial help that comes from the organization, where they just want to use you to increase their membership and increase their bank account. So that's all I have to say on this episode as far as Gage Fleegle's talk. I hope that you enjoyed what I presented to you here. I hope that you'll please like, share, and subscribe. Here, I'll do it for you. Alexa, please like, share, and subscribe this channel I'm watching. No, that didn't work. So I'll need you to do it yourself if you don't mind. With that, I will bid you adieu and catch you next time. Bye for now. What's he gonna say? I don't remember.